The morning air on Kepler-4 for to be tasted like rust and despair. Hyun-woo Kim pressed his face against the cold metal bars of his cell and watched the purple sun rise over the mining facility. 3 years had passed since the Velthran ships had appeared above their peaceful colony ship. 3 years since everything changed. The facility stretched out before him like a scar across the barren landscape. Gray buildings connected by covered walkways, guard towers with alien sentries, and everywhere the sound of mining equipment tearing into the planet's surface. The Velthrans called it a research station. The prisoners knew better. Another beautiful day in paradise, Bioram Lee whispered from the cell next to her voice carried the bitter edge that had grown sharper with each passing month. Once she had been a respected xenobiologist studying new worlds. Now she organized the quiet resistance that kept hope alive among the human prisoners. Hyun-woo turned away from the window. At least we're still breathing for now. Bioram's dark eyes met his through the bars. Yuna says 3 more prisoners died last night. The work quotas are getting impossible. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the cell block. Hyun-woo quickly moved to his sleeping mat and pretended to rest. The other prisoners did the same. When the Velthran guards made their rounds, it was best to appear weak and defeated. Guard Captain Vrek stepped into view. His reptilian scales gleamed under the harsh lights. Like all Velthrans, he stood nearly 8 feet tall with powerful limbs and cold yellow eyes. He wore the black uniform of the facility security force. Work assignments, Rex announced in heavily accented English. Mining teams to the eastern tunnels. Technical teams to the communication center. Medical teams to the processing facility. Hyun-woo felt his heart skip. Communication center. He had not been assigned there in months. As a former Earth Fleet communications officer, the Velthrans usually kept him away from any technology that might be useful. Kim Hyun-woo Technical, Team 7, Communication Center, Maintenance. Bioram shot him a quick glance. They both knew this was unusual, but questioning guard assignments was a good way to end up in the punishment cells. The prisoners filed out of the cell block in groups. Hyun-woo walked with the other technical workers toward the center of the facility. The communication center was a large building filled with alien technology that connected the facility to the wider Velthran Empire. Tae-Min Park fell into step beside him. The young engineer had managed to survive by making himself useful to their captors. He fixed their machines and kept their systems running. In return, the Velthrans gave him slightly better food and fewer beatings. Why do you think they want us in communications today? Tae-Min asked quietly. Maybe something broke that they can't fix themselves, Hyun-woo replied, but he had a different suspicion. Intelligence reports before the capture had suggested that Velthrans were not as advanced as they pretended. They relied heavily on captured technology and enslaved technical workers. The communication center buzzed with activity. Velthran technicians worked at strange curved consoles while holographic displays showed star charts and data streams. Guard Captain Vrex led the human workers to a section of damaged equipment. System failure in Communications Array 7, Vrex explained. Your job is to make it work again. You have until evening mealtime. The humans got to work. Hyun-woo studied the damaged equipment carefully. It was definitely of Velthran design but incorporated elements from other alien technologies. As he traced the power connections, he realized something important. This array was connected to the main communication system. The work progressed slowly. The Velthran guards grew bored and began talking among themselves. Some left to check on other work details. By midday, only 2 guards remained in the communication center. Tae-Min had identified the problem. A power coupling had burned out and damaged several circuit boards. I can fix this, he told Hyun-woo, but I need about 2 hours. Take your time, Hyun-woo said. He had noticed something else. One of the main communication consoles was showing an error message. The Velthran technician assigned to it had left for the meal break without logging out properly. This was the chance he had been waiting for 3 years. When the guards moved to the far side of the room, Hyun-woo quietly approached the unsecured console. His fingers moved quickly across the alien interface. Years of studying captured Velthran technology during his fleet service had taught him the basics of their systems. The console came alive under his touch. Communication arrays across the facility appeared on the display. But more importantly, he could access the long-range transmission systems that could reach across the galaxy. His hands shook as he composed the message. It had to be short, it had to be coded, and it had to get past the automatic filters that would flag any obvious distress signals. Sol System, Terra Command, Code 77 Alpha Kepler 442b. Grid reference 847 to 223.091. Package cargo 200 units. Velthran containment. Immediate extraction required. Authentication Kim Hyun-woo service number 77491. Signal complete. He sent the message in a burst transmission hidden within routine system maintenance data. Then he quickly cleared the console logs and returned to helping Tae-Min with the repairs. The rest of the afternoon passed slowly. Hyun-woo tried to act normal while his mind raced. Had the message gotten through? Would Earth receive it? Would they understand the coded language? As evening approached, the damaged equipment was finally repaired. The Velthran technicians tested the systems and seemed satisfied. The human workers were dismissed back to their cells, but as they walked across the facility courtyard, alarms began to sound. Security alert, came the announcement over the facility speakers. All prisoners returned to cells immediately. Guards 2 stations. Bioram grabbed Hyenwoo's arm. What's happening? I don't know, he lied. But his stomach was turning to ice. The alarms could only mean one thing. Someone had discovered the unauthorized transmission back in the cell block. The prisoners huddled together nervously. Outside they could hear the sound of marching feet and shouted orders. The facility was going into lockdown. Hours passed. Then the cell block doors opened with a crash. Guard Captain Vrex entered with a squad of armed soldiers. His yellow eyes were cold with rage. This afternoon, someone sent an unauthorized message off-world. We know it came from the communication center. We know it was one of the human technical workers. He walked slowly along the row of cells, studying each prisoner. The guilty party will confess now, or we will begin executing prisoners until someone talks. The silence stretched on. Hyenwoo felt sweat running down his back. Around him, the other prisoners stared at the floor. Very well, Vrex said finally. Bring the first one. 2 guards grabbed Woojin Nam from his cell. The former Marine had been captured while trying to defend the colony's children. He did not resist as they dragged him toward the cell block entrance. Wait, Hyenwoo started to say. But Bioram caught his eye and shook her head slightly. If he confessed now, they would kill him immediately. If he stayed silent, there might still be a chance the message had reached Earth. The sound of a single gunshot echoed through the facility. Vrex returned alone. Tomorrow we will execute another, and another, until the guilty party confesses or you are all dead. As the guards left, the prisoners sat in stunned silence. Gina Choi was crying quietly in her cell. Others stared at the walls with empty eyes, but Hyenwoo found himself thinking about Earth, about the powerful ships and determined soldiers of the Terran Defense Force, about the fact that no human colony had ever been abandoned to alien captors. Somewhere in the darkness of space, his message was traveling toward home. The question was whether any of them would survive long enough to see the rescue. Description Glow, Part 1 establishes the desperate situation on Kepler 4 for 2b, where 200 human colonists have been enslaved by the Velthran Empire for 3 years. The story follows Hyenwoo Kim, a former Earthfleet communications officer, as he seizes a rare opportunity to send a coded distress signal to Earth. The tension builds as Hyenwoo risks everything to get the message out, knowing that discovery means certain death. The part ends with the Velthrans beginning to execute prisoners to find the person responsible for the transmission, setting up the deadly stakes for the rest of the story. The writing uses simple language and focuses on the human elements of survival, hope, and sacrifice that make HFY Stories compelling. 2 weeks had passed since Woojin Nam died. 2 weeks since the Velthrans had begun their hunt for the person who sent the message. 5 more prisoners had been executed. The remaining humans lived in constant fear of being chosen next. Hyenwoo sat in his cell staring at his hands. The guilt was eating him alive. Good people were dying because of what he had done. But every night he looked up at the stars and wondered if his message had reached Earth. They found something, Bioram whispered from the next cell. She was watching the guards through the small window. Look at how they're moving. 3 Velthran officers were walking quickly across the courtyard toward the command building. Their body language showed excitement and urgency. Something important was happening. Guard Captain Vrex appeared at the cell block entrance an hour later, but this time he was not alone. Behind him walked Supermarch Kithok himself. The facility commander rarely visited the prisoner areas. Kithok was larger than the other Velthrans. His scales were darker and scarred from old battles. Golden ornaments decorated his uniform, marking his high rank in the Velthran military hierarchy. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of absolute power. Humans, Kithok announced, we have received an interesting communication from your homeworld. The prisoners looked up with sudden hope. Earth had responded. The message had gotten through. Your leaders have acknowledged our message about this facility, Kithok continued. They claim they want to negotiate for your release. Hyenwoo felt his heart racing. This was it. Earth was coming for them. But Kithok's next words crushed that hope like a hammer. Of course, we cannot simply let you go. You have seen too much. You know too much about our operations. So we have sent Earth a counterproposal. We walked slowly along the row of cells, studying the human faces. We have informed your government that any attempt to rescue you will result in your immediate execution. We have also demanded that Earth surrender 3 of their outer colonies, as payment for your lives. The silence in the cell block was complete. Even the guards seemed nervous about their commander's words. Furthermore, Kithok said with a cruel smile, we have given Earth exactly 1 standard month to comply. If they refuse, or if any Earth ships are detected approaching this system, all prisoners will be killed. Bioram spoke up from her cell. You're making a mistake. Earth doesn't abandon its people. Kithok turned to face her. Your species is weak. Your world is small and far from the center of galactic civilization. What can a few primitive humans do against the might of the Velth Empire? You'll find out, Borum replied quietly. The Supermarch laughed. Indeed we will. Guards, increase security around the facility. I want sensors monitoring all approaches to this system. The humans must understand that any rescue attempt will fail. After the Velthrons left, the prisoners gathered near the bars of their cells to whisper urgently. Do you think Earth will pay their demands? Asked Taman Park. Never, said Jinna Choi firmly. The Terran Defense Force doesn't negotiate with kidnappers. But what if they try to rescue us and we all get killed? Another prisoner asked. Hyanwu listened to the debate but said nothing. He knew something the others did not. During his years in Earthfleet, he had learned about the classified protocols for hostage situations. Earth had very specific policies about how to handle threats against human civilians. Those policies did not involve surrendering colonies. 3 days later, the Velthrons made their first major mistake. Duhyan Shin had been assigned to clean the administrative building. Duhyan was useful to the Velthrons because he spoke several alien languages and could translate documents. The guards had grown careless around him, thinking he was harmless. While cleaning the records room, Duhyan discovered something that made his blood run cold. Hidden in the facility's files were detailed records of experiments conducted on prisoners from multiple species, not just humans, but aliens from dozens of different worlds. The Velthrons were conducting illegal medical research on sentient beings, according to galactic law. Such experiments were considered crimes against all civilized species. The evidence Duhyan found would be enough to bring down the entire Velthron leadership, but getting the information out would be almost impossible. Duhyan carefully memorized what he could and made mental notes about where the files were stored. When his work shift ended, he found Bioram in the exercise yard. I need to talk to you, he said quietly. They walked to a corner where the surveillance equipment had a blind spot. Bioram had discovered these locations during her 3 years of planning resistance activities. The experiments, Duhyan whispered. They're torturing prisoners from all over the galaxy. I found the records. Bioram's face went pale. How many species? At least 30 different worlds, maybe more. They're testing biological weapons, studying pain responses, trying to find ways to break the will of different alien types. We need to get this information to Earth, Bioram said. How? They're watching everything after what happened with the communication array. Bioram was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled grimly. Leave that to me. Over the next week, Bioram put together a plan. It would require help from prisoners across the facility. It would be dangerous, and it would probably get several people killed, but it was their only chance. The plan started with Taman Park. During his maintenance work, he identified a backup communication system that the Velthrons rarely monitored. It was old technology, mainly used for emergency broadcasts within the facility. Jin-R Choi provided the medical knowledge needed to create a distraction. She had been saving medicine from the prison medical supplies, mixed together in the right combination. They would create a drug that would make several prisoners appear seriously ill. When the fake medical emergency happened, it drew guards away from the communication center. Taman used those precious minutes to access the backup system and transmit Duhyan's evidence to Earth. The transmission was crude and took several attempts, but eventually, the data packet containing proof of Velthron war crimes shot out into space. Following the same path as Hyanwu's original distress signal, the Velthrons discovered the second breach within hours. This time, Supermarch Kithik was furious beyond reason. He ordered all prisoners to be brought to the main courtyard. Armed guards surrounded them while Kithok paced back and forth like a caged predator. Someone has sent another unauthorized transmission, he announced. This ends now. He pulled out his personal weapon and pointed it at the nearest prisoner. I will kill one human every hour until the guilty party confesses. The first execution happened at sunset, then another at full dark. By dawn, 3 more prisoners were dead, but none of the resistance members confessed. On the 15th day after this second transmission, long-range sensors detected something that made the Velthron command staff very nervous. A message had arrived from Earth. Supre March Kithvak read the transmission in his private office. The message was short and direct. To the Velthron forces holding human prisoners, you have 48 hours to release all captives unharmed and surrender to galactic authorities for trial. This is your only warning. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your military presence in this system. Kithok laughed when he finished reading. Empty threats from a primitive species. He composed his reply immediately. To Earth Command. Your people will die if you approach this system. We have 300 prisoners and will execute them all rather than surrender. Your move. Kithok sent his message with full confidence that Earth would back down when faced with such overwhelming stakes. It was the biggest mistake of his life. The response from Earth arrived 6 hours later. It was broadcast on all frequencies so that every Velthron ship and base in the system could hear it clearly. Message received and understood. No further communication will be necessary. Then the sensors began detecting ships. Not 1 or 2 ships. Not even a small fleet. The approaching armada was larger than anything the Velthrons had ever seen. Hundreds of vessels moving in perfect formation toward Kepler 44b, and they were not slowing down in his cell. Hien Wu looked up at the stars and smiled for the first time in 3 years. Earth was coming. Description. Glow Part 2 escalates the conflict by showing the Velthran Empire's catastrophic miscalculation. Supermarch Kithok believes he can intimidate Earth into surrendering colonies in exchange for the prisoners, not understanding that he's dealing with humans from a death world. Meanwhile, the prisoners discover evidence of horrific war crimes and manage to transmit this proof to Earth, giving humanity both moral justification and legal authority for what comes next. The part builds tension through the increasing brutality of the Velthrans and ends with the ominous arrival of a massive human fleet, setting up the devastating response that will follow in subsequent parts. Admiral Su Young Kang stood on the bridge of the TDF battleship, indomitable, and watched the star streak past at faster-than-light speeds. Behind her ship, the largest fleet in human history followed in perfect formation, 237 warships, 50,000 marines, and enough firepower to glass an entire star system. 3 weeks had passed since Earth received the first distress signal from Kepler-442b. 3 weeks since the Terran Defense Force had activated Protocol 77 Alpha, the Damocles Protocol. Few people in the galaxy knew about Damocles. It was humanity's most classified military doctrine, a response plan designed for one specific scenario: threats against human civilians by hostile alien forces. The protocol was simple in concept and terrifying in execution. When activated, every available military asset in human space would converge on the threat location. The goal was not just rescue, it was complete elimination of the hostile force and a demonstration that would prevent future attacks on human colonies. Admiral Kang had been in her office on Lunar Base when the alert came through. Within 6 hours, she was aboard her flagship, leading the largest military operation in human history. Admiral called her communications officer. "We're receiving reports from the other battle groups." "Go ahead, Lieutenant." Battle Group Theta reports all ships ready and in position. Battle Group Sigma is maintaining formation speed. The Marine Assault Groups are prepared for immediate deployment upon arrival. Admiral Kong nodded. Everything was proceeding according to plan, but she knew the real challenge would come when they reached Kepler-44b. The Velthran Empire was not a small enemy. They controlled 17 star systems and commanded one of the largest military forces in this region of the galaxy. Under normal circumstances, humanity would avoid direct conflict with such a powerful neighbor, but these were not normal circumstances. General Kyung-Ho Lee appeared on the main communication screen from his flagship in the Marine Assault Group. His scarred face showed the determination that had made him legendary among the Terran Marine Corps. "Admiral, my forces are ready for immediate planetary assault. We've studied the facility layouts from the intelligence data. We can have boots on the ground within 20 minutes of arrival." "Understood, General, but remember, this is a rescue operation first. The safety of our people is the primary objective." "Of course, Admiral, but if the Velthrans want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." Dr. Yoonji Park joined the conversation from the science vessel Aristotle as the fleet's xenological warfare specialist. Her job was to understand alien psychology and predict enemy behavior. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the Velthran communications we intercepted. Their leadership appears to believe they can intimidate us into backing down. They don't understand what they're dealing with." "Explain," Admiral Kong said. "The Velthrans come from a world with light gravity and a stable climate. Their entire species evolved in comfortable conditions. They've never faced a real existential threat. They think war is about politics and negotiation. And humans?" Dr. Park smiled grimly. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and countless other disasters. When humans go to war, we don't negotiate, we eliminate threats." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from Earth Command. "Admiral Kang, this is Fleet Command. We've received additional intelligence about the situation at Kepler-44b. Go ahead, Command." The evidence transmitted by the prisoners confirms that the Velthrans are conducting illegal experiments on sentient beings from multiple species. The Galactic Council has issued a formal statement supporting any military action Earth deems necessary. Admiral Kong felt a cold satisfaction. Legal justification was important, but even without it, nothing would have stopped this fleet from reaching the prisoners. Furthermore, Fleet Command continued, "We've detected Velthran fleet movements in 3 other systems. They appear to be preparing for a larger conflict." "Understood. Any change to our mission parameters?" "Negative. Rescue the prisoners. Eliminate the immediate threat. Send a message that will prevent future attacks on human civilians." The communication ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Captain Min Ho Yoon's voice came through on a secure channel. His Special Forces unit was aboard one of the stealth ships, traveling ahead of the main fleet. "Admiral, we're approaching the target system. Preliminary reconnaissance shows significant Velthran military presence. At least 30 ships in orbit around Kepler-44b. Can you get a read on the facility?" "Affirmative. Thermal imaging shows approximately 150 life signs in the main prison complex. The Velthrans have fortified the facility and positioned defensive weapons around the perimeter. Admiral Kong studied the tactical display. The Velthrons had turned the prison into a fortress. Any direct assault would be costly and might result in prisoner casualties. But humans had advantages the Velthrons didn't understand. Captain Yoon maintained surveillance and prepare for insertion. General Lee, modify your assault plan based on Captain Yoon's intelligence. Dr. Park, I need you to prepare a psychological warfare package. What kind of package, Admiral? Something that will make the Velthrons understand exactly what they've done wrong. 2 days later, the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442b system. The Velthron defenders were waiting for them. Supermarch Kithok had assembled every available ship to defend the facility. Cruisers, destroyers, fighter squadrons, and defensive platforms created a formidable barrier between the human fleet and the planet. He opened a communication channel to the approaching human ships. Earth vessels, you are trespassing in space. Turn around immediately or we will destroy you. Admiral Kong personally answered the communication. Velthron forces, you are holding human civilians in violation of galactic law. Release them immediately and surrender for trial. This is your final warning. Kithok's laughter echoed across the communication channel. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Your pathetic fleet cannot match the power of the Velthron Empire. Perhaps, Admiral Kong replied calmly, but you've made one crucial mistake. What mistake? You threatened humans. We don't forgive that. The communication channel went silent. Then Dr. Park activated her psychological warfare package. Every communication device in the Velthron fleet suddenly came alive with the sound of human music. Not peaceful music or diplomatic messages, or songs, battle hymns. The kind of music that had inspired human warriors for thousands of years. Mixed with the music came images, footage from human military training, soldiers surviving in Arctic conditions, Marines storming hostile beaches under enemy fire, special forces operating in environments that would kill most alien species within minutes. But the most disturbing images were of Earth itself, the violent storms, the deadly predators, the volcanic eruptions and earthquakes that humans considered normal parts of life. The message was clear. You were fighting a species that evolved to survive anything the universe could throw at them. The psychological warfare package concluded with a simple statement broadcast in perfect Velthron language. We are from Earth. We are death. We have come for our people. Stand aside or be destroyed. The effect on the Velthron fleet was immediate and obvious. Ship formations began to waver. Communication chatter increased dramatically. Several smaller vessels started moving away from the main defensive line. Admiral Kong watched the enemy fleet's confusion with professional satisfaction. Fear was a powerful weapon when used correctly, but Supermarch Kithok was not ready to surrender. All ships attack formation. Destroy the human fleet. For the glory of the Velthron Empire. The space battle began with a brilliant flash. As energy weapons lit up the darkness between stars. The Velthrons had superior numbers, they had stronger individual ships, they had better defensive positions, but they were fighting humans, and humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things that were bigger and stronger than themselves. Admiral Kong smiled as her fleet moved into attack formation. It was time to show the galaxy why Earth was classified as a death world and why threatening humans always came with a price. Description: Glow, Part 3 shifts perspective to Earth's massive military response. Introducing Admiral Su Young Kang and the enormous fleet mobilized under the classified Damocles Protocol. This part showcases the true scope of human military power and reveals why humanity is feared as death. The psychological warfare element demonstrates human understanding of alien psychology, while the setup for the space battle shows the tactical and strategic advantages humans possess. The part builds toward the climactic confrontation while emphasizing the themes of human determination, unity, and the terrible price of threatening human civilians. The space battle raged for 6 hours above Kepler 442b. Hyun Woo Kim watched through the small window of his cell as bright flashes lit up the night sky. Energy weapons and explosions created a deadly light show among the stars. The human fleet had arrived exactly as he had hoped, but the Velthrons were fighting back with everything they had. They're really doing it, whispered Bjoram Lee from her cell. Earth came for us. The question is whether we'll live to see the rescue, replied Jinna Choi. Her medical training told her that stressed captors often killed their prisoners rather than lose them to enemy forces. Supermarch Kithok had tripled. For the guard presence around the facility, armed soldiers patrolled every hallway. Defensive weapons had been positioned around the prison complex. The message was clear. If the humans wanted their people back, they would have to fight for them. Inside the facility command center, Kithok watched the battle reports with growing anger. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by the human forces. Ships that had served the Velthron Empire for decades were being reduced to burning wreckage. Supermarch called his tactical officer. We've lost 12 cruisers and 30 smaller vessels. The humans are using coordinated attack patterns we've never seen before. How many human ships have we destroyed? 3, sir, all smaller escort vessels. Kithok's scales darkened with rage. The humans were supposed to be a weak species from a backwater world. How were they defeating the mighty Velthran fleet so easily? The answer came from his intelligence officer. Sir, we've analyzed the human tactics. They're not fighting like any civilized species we know. They're using suicide runs, ramming attacks, and weapons that violate several galactic warfare conventions. What do you mean? They're treating this like a total war, sir. No rules, no mercy. They're here to completely destroy us. Kithok stared at the tactical display showing his shrinking fleet. Red icons representing destroyed Velthran ships covered the screen. The human fleet continued its relentless advance toward the planet. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving surrender requests from several of our ship captains. They want permission to withdraw from the battle. Denied, all ships will fight to the death for the Empire. But Kithok knew the battle was lost. His only remaining option was to use the prisoners as leverage. If he could not defeat the human fleet, perhaps he could force them to negotiate. Order all ground forces to the prison complex. If the humans want their people back, they'll have to come down here and take them. In the prison cells, the human captives could hear the sounds of increasing military activity. Boots marching in formation. Heavy weapons being moved into position. Orders being shouted in the Velthran language. Tay-Min Park had been assigned to maintenance work in the facility's lower levels. When he returned to the cell block, his face was pale with worry. They're setting up explosives, he whispered to the others. All around the prison complex. If they can't hold the facility, they plan to destroy it with all of us inside. The news spread quickly among the prisoners. After 3 years of captivity, they were finally close to rescue, but the Velthrans would rather kill them all than let them go free. We have to do something, said Bioram. We can't just sit here and wait to die. What can we do? Asked another prisoner. We're locked in cells. There are guards everywhere. We know this facility better than anyone, Hyunwoo said. We've been here for 3 years. We know where the weak points are, where the security systems have blind spots. Bioram nodded slowly. You're thinking about an escape attempt. Not an escape, a breakout. Create enough confusion to help the rescue teams when they arrive. That's suicide, Jinna protested. The guards will kill us all. They're going to kill us anyway, Hyunwoo replied. At least this way we go down fighting. The plan took shape quickly. It would require coordination between prisoners in different sections of the facility. It would need precise timing, and it would definitely result in casualties. But it was their only chance. Young Sube had been working in the facility's power plant. He knew how to overload the electrical systems and cause controlled blackouts. If he could create darkness in the right areas at the right time, it might give the other prisoners a chance. He and Shin could access the communication systems during his translation work. He might be able to contact the approaching human forces and provide intelligence about the facility layout. Jin-Ah Choi had been saving medical supplies for months. She could treat wounded prisoners during the breakout attempt. The plan began at sunset on the third day of the space battle. Young triggered the first power overload in the eastern section of the facility. Emergency lighting activated, but several guard posts were left in darkness. The confused Velthran soldiers rushed to investigate the power failure. At the same moment, Duhyan accessed a communication terminal and transmitted facility blueprints to the human fleet. The data included locations of prisoner cells, guard positions, and the explosive charges Kithok had placed around the complex. The transmission was brief but crucial. Human special forces teams needed to know exactly where to find their people. The Velthrans discovered the communication breach within minutes. Alarms began sounding throughout the facility, but the damage was done. Earth forces now had detailed intelligence about their target. All prisoners to the main courtyard. Guard Captain Rex announced over the facility speakers. Any prisoner found in the cell blocks will be shot on sight. The Velthrans had decided to gather all the humans in one location where they could be more easily controlled or eliminated. As the prisoners were marched across the facility grounds, Hyunwoo looked up at the sky. The space battle was clearly ending. Only a few Velthran ships remained in orbit. The human fleet had achieved complete victory. Now came the hard part in the facility command center. Supermarch Kithok watched his defeated fleet retreating in disorder. Decades of Velthran military dominance had been shattered in a single day. Sir, his communications officer reported, the human fleet is demanding our immediate surrender. They're threatening to bombard the facility from orbit if we don't release the prisoners within 1 hour. Tell them we have explosives placed throughout the prison complex. If they attack, their people die with us. Sir, that would be a violation of I don't care about galactic law anymore, Kithok snarled. These humans want a war. I'll give them one they'll remember. The message was transmitted to the human fleet. The response came back within minutes. Veltran forces, you have 30 minutes to release all prisoners and surrender unconditionally. This is your final warning. Kithok laughed bitterly. 30 minutes, let them come. We'll see how much their precious humans mean to them when they're buried under the rubble of this facility. But Supermarch Kithok had made the same mistake as every other enemy who had ever underestimated humanity. He thought humans would hesitate to risk their own people. He was about to learn that Humans had been fighting impossible battles and winning, against overwhelming odds for their entire evolutionary history. And when human lives were at stake, impossible just meant they had to try harder. High above the planet, Admiral Su Young Kang studied the intelligence data Du Heian had transmitted, the facility layout, the prisoner locations, the explosive charges. General Lee, she said into her communicator. How quickly can your teams get to those prisoners? Give me 20 minutes and air superiority, Admiral, we'll have them out. Captain Yoon, can your special forces neutralize those explosives? Already planning the approach routes, Admiral, we'll go in dark and fast. Admiral Kong looked at the countdown timer on her command screen. 28 minutes until the Velthran deadline. All units, this is Admiral Kong, execute Operation Homecoming. Bring our people home. In the facility courtyard, 147 human prisoners stood surrounded by armed guards. They had survived 3 years of captivity. They had endured torture, starvation, and the constant threat of death. Now they waited to see if their home world would save them or if they would die within sight of rescue. The final test was about to begin. Description Glow Part 4 intensifies the conflict as the Velthrans realize they're losing the space battle and resort to threatening the prisoners' lives. The story shows both the space battle's conclusion with human victory and the desperate situation on the ground where Supremach Kithok prepares to kill all prisoners rather than surrender. The human prisoners organize a dangerous breakout attempt to help their rescuers, demonstrating the courage and unity that defines the HFY genre. The part builds maximum tension as both sides prepare for the final confrontation, with the prisoners' lives hanging in the balance and Earth forces racing against time to save them. 27 minutes remained until Supremach Kithok's deadline, when the first human dropships broke through Kepler 442b's atmosphere. They came down like falling stars, their heat shields glowing white-hot as they descended toward the prison facility. In the facility courtyard, 147 human prisoners watched the sky with desperate hope. Velthran guards surrounded them with weapons ready. The slightest wrong move would trigger a massacre. Hien Wu Kim stood with the other prisoners and felt a strange calm settling over him. After 3 years of captivity, the end was finally here. One way or another, this would be their last day, in Velthran hands. Movement in the eastern sectors, reported a Velthran guard. Multiple contacts approaching fast. Supremach Kithok stood on the command center balcony overlooking the courtyard. His finger hovered over the detonation control that would trigger explosives throughout the facility. How many ships? Impossible to count, sir. They're using stealth technology and jamming our sensors. It doesn't matter, Kithok said coldly. When they get close enough, I'll kill all the prisoners. That the humans explained to their people why their rescue attempt failed. But Kithok had never fought humans before. He didn't understand how Deathworlders approached impossible situations. The attack came from everywhere at once. Captain Minho, UN's Special Forces teams had been infiltrating the facility for the past 6 hours, moving through ventilation systems, sewage tunnels, and maintenance shafts. They had positioned themselves throughout the complex without triggering a single alarm. When Admiral Kong gave the order, they struck simultaneously. Explosive charges destroyed guard towers around the facility perimeter. Sniper teams eliminated sentries with precision shots. Assault teams breached the facility walls from 12 different directions. The defenders had expected a frontal assault. Instead, they found themselves under attack from inside their own base. In the courtyard, the prisoners threw themselves to the ground as gunfire erupted around them. Velthran guards turned in confusion, not knowing which threat to face first. Hien Wu saw his chance. Rolling toward the nearest guard, he grabbed the alien's weapon and fired at 2 more soldiers. Around him, other prisoners joined the fight. With desperate courage, Boram Lee tackled a guard twice her size and managed to wrestle away his sidearm. This is for Wu Jin Nam, she shouted as she fired. But Supremach Kithok still controlled the facility's destruction. From his command center, he could see the battle turning against his forces. Human soldiers were systematically clearing each section of the complex. Activate the charges, he ordered. Kill them all. His finger pressed the detonation control. Nothing happened. Sir, the explosive network is not responding, reported his technical officer. What do you mean not responding? Someone has severed the detonation cables throughout the facility. Young Subei had died making sure those cables were cut. During the first power outage, he had used his knowledge of the facility's systems to disable the explosive network. The Velthrans had found and killed him, but his sacrifice had saved every human in the complex. Kithok screamed in rage and drew his personal weapon. If he could not kill all the prisoners, he would kill as many as possible with his own hands. He never made it out of the command center. Captain Minho Yoon appeared in the doorway like a ghost. The human special forces officer moved with the deadly efficiency of a predator that had evolved on the most dangerous world in the galaxy. Supremach Kithok Yoon said calmly, "You're under arrest for crimes against humanity and violations of galactic law." Kithok raised his weapon. "I'll die before I surrender to you, primitive." The sentence ended abruptly. Captain Yoon's reflexes were faster than any Velthran could match. The alien commander fell to the floor, his weapon unfired. Rescue teams, this is Alpha Leader, Yoon reported over his communicator. Command center secured. All explosives neutralized. Begin prisoner evacuation. The battle for the facility lasted exactly 47 minutes from start to finish. When the shooting stopped, 147 human prisoners stood free in the courtyard. Some were wounded, all were traumatized, but they were alive, and safe. Jin-A moved among them, treating injuries with the medical supplies she had saved. Taemin Park helped coordinate with the rescue teams. Du-Hyun Shin translated for the few Velthran guards who had surrendered. Hyun Woo Kim found himself face-to-face with General Kyung-Ho Lee. The legendary Marine Corps commander had come down with the assault teams to personally oversee the rescue. Lieutenant Commander Kim, General Lee said, using Hyun Woo's old rank. On behalf of Earth and the Terran Defense Force, welcome home. Thank you, sir, but I'm not an officer anymore. Haven't been for 3 years. Actually, you've been promoted, twice while in captivity. The message you sent saved not just these prisoners, but provided evidence that will prevent future attacks on human colonies. Hyun Woo looked around at his fellow survivors. We lost 53 people, General, good people who didn't deserve to die in this place. Their sacrifice will be remembered, and it will be avenged. The rescue was only the beginning. Admiral So Young Kong had received new orders from Earth Command during the operation. The Velthran Empire's attack on human civilians could not go unanswered. Protocol 77 Alpha called for more than just rescue. It demanded justice. Over the following weeks, human fleets appeared in 3 Velthran star systems, not to conquer territory, but to dismantle the military infrastructure that had made the prison camp possible. Velthran shipyards were systematically destroyed. Military bases were reduced to rubble. The Empire's ability to threaten other species was permanently eliminated. The Velthran government surrendered unconditionally after their capital fleet was destroyed in a single day, but Earth's response went beyond military action. The evidence Du-Hyun had discovered about illegal experiments led to the largest war crimes trial in galactic history. Hundreds of Velthran officials were convicted and sentenced. The victims from dozens of species finally received justice. The Velthran Empire was dissolved. Their former territory was placed under the protection of a coalition led by Earth. The species that had once terrorized this region of space became refugees, dependent on human mercy, and humans showed them more mercy than they had ever shown their victims. 6 months after the rescue, Hyun Woo Kim stood on the observation deck of Earth Station Luna. He wore the uniform of a Terran Defense Force admiral, having been appointed to oversee the new prisoner protection protocols. Lee joined him at the view. She had accepted a position leading the Xenological Ethics Commission, ensuring that what happened at Kepler 442b would never happen again. Do you think we did the right thing? Bioram asked, watching Earth turn slowly below them. You mean destroying the Velthran Empire? I mean everything. The rescue, the retaliation, becoming the galaxy's self-appointed protectors. Hyun Woo was quiet for a moment. The galaxy has a new understanding now. They know what happens when you threaten human civilians. Maybe that knowledge will prevent future atrocities. And if it doesn't, then they'll learn the same lesson the Velthrans did. Deathworlders don't forgive and we never forget. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations had quietly updated their diplomatic protocols regarding humanity. First contact procedures now included specific warnings about the consequences of harming human citizens. The phrase Deathworlders don't forgive had entered galactic common usage as both a warning and a promise. Humanity had announced its presence on the galactic stage, not through conquest or expansion, but through an unbreakable commitment to protecting their own people, and every species in known space understood the message. Touch our people, and face the consequences. The survivors of Kepler 442b had been rescued. The Velthran Empire had been ended. Justice had been served. But the real victory was simpler and more profound. No human colony would ever again face capture and enslavement by alien forces, because the galaxy now knew the price of such actions, and that price was total destruction. Description: Glow Part 5 delivers the climactic rescue operation and its devastating aftermath for the Velthran Empire. The story shows human military precision and tactical superiority as Captain Min-Ho Yoon's special forces execute a flawless rescue operation. The 47-minute battle demonstrates why humans are considered Deathworlders, while the subsequent dismantling of the entire Velthran Empire shows the true scope of Earth's response to threats against human civilians. The conclusion establishes humanity's new role as galactic protectors and delivers the core HFY message: threatening humans comes with consequences that few alien species can afford to pay. The ending reinforces the story's title and central theme that Deathworlders never forgive attacks on their own people.